Yeah, that's not how it goes at all, is it, Steve? No, not really. But it's my attempt at Supernaut. I had to tell you because most people won't have known by the way I did it. Quite poor. Not in any way poor is this documentary. It's available on YouTube, and it's from the tapes archive. It's taken 6 months to put it together, Follox, and it's about what I think is a bit of an overlooked Sabbath album. I mean, it's not as overlooked as Forbidden, obviously, or any of the Tony Martin albums. Jim Martin was in Faith No More, wasn't he? And it's not as overlooked as Dehumanizer, where Ronnie came back. But anyway, that's for another podcast, isn't it? This is about Volume 4. And, came between Master of Reality and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. And those two albums are considered, among fans, to be big pieces of work, really. I think. I could be wrong, but generally you don't hear Sabbath fans. You will do in Sabbath fan forums, of course. Or is it fora? It's not, is it? It's forums. Who have been talking about this documentary non-stop, and that's quite right, because it is rather good. You don't hear a load of people talking about Sabbath. When this general conversation chat, online or off, about Sabbath and rock and metal in general, not that Sabbath were heavy metal in my view in any way, shape or form, but people don't generally talk about Volume 4. And the two big tracks really on Volume 4 are Supernaut and Changes. And Changes has been reclaimed, hasn't it? Because you've got Ozzy, you've got that with, didn't he do that with his daughter and all that kind of stuff? Didn't they have a duet together and all that? So he's kind of reclaimed it for the Sharon period. But at the time, it did split audiences, as this documentary tells us. Now, what the documentary says, and it's an hour and a quarter, what it says, that's not a lot of time for 6 months of work, is it? But it's a cracker, this one, because it does tell us in the lead up to this, and I've been looking at trailers and all of that, it does say you will find something new, even if you know a lot about the album. So for me, who hadn't even looked at the album, because I listen to it pretty regularly, but or do I? Maybe I don't, but I feel I do. But I didn't know a lot about it. It's not an album that I've really gone to think about how it's produced. I mean, Sabotage, I'm all over that one, because that's got an extraordinary backstory, ain't it? But that kind of begins here, because the context is given really well to this album. An album which Ozzy Osbourne apparently said is like having a couple of lines pushed in or poured into your ears. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but you have got the track Snowblind on this album, haven't you? And there's all that. So there is a chat about that, but you get the context beautifully, because what you don't often get, and good documentaries do this, is they tell you how pushed things were. So the tour for the previous album had really frazzled everybody. And what you do get is they needed time. They cancelled some European dates. They were all ill. And Ozzy had 105-degree temperature at one point and laryngitis. And they cancelled some European dates and gave themselves a couple of months off. However, that didn't stop them from working on this album, it seems, because they were working on the album about a month after Master of Reality came out. So that context about how you are pushed into your very limits, and then you have a little bit of time off, but you can't really stop. And then Tony, is left in the studio to come up with some riffs. Come on, we'll go and have a drink and some darts, and there are cue videos of darts and all of that. And what it does is, this documentary, it gives you things like a little bit of Spinal Tap and bits of pop culture in there, which is lovely. It's really easy to watch. It's involving, but that's because it's really friendly. So it's as if it's saying, come on in. You might not know much about this album. Let me put a virtual arm around your shoulder. Come and have a chat with us. Crack open a beer, or in my view, a soft beverage. And but not one of those J2Os. I'm not very keen. No, I don't want, not even the red one. Oh, well, that's the only one that's available. I'll have that one. But anyway, it does say, sit down, have a good time, and just let it sink in. It never says, listen to this. You must listen. It's confident in its work, and consequently, it doesn't need to meet you and drag you in. It just says, come on. You know, meet me 50-50 and then you'll be all in. And I was. It's great. There are lots of quotes here reproduced, and what you do get, which is lovely, is they reproduce them on the screen, and then as they're talking, or as it's being narrated, it turns purple. It's lovely. And the narration, by the way, is easy on the ear. It's got no authorial voice. It gives us the information that we want, and we're out of there. You know, we go through the songs, but first we also put the context of the religious groups and counsellors and that kind of thing in the US who thought this was a satanic band and didn't like any of that. You've also got information about, well, here are the bands who were producing stuff at the time. So, you know, Grand Funk Railroad are in there, and Led Zeppelin, and they just brought out the Untitled album, sometimes called Four Sticks, as well as that, all of that, Symbols album. So you've got that kind of, well, we need to produce a cracker. And they go through the tracks. Changes is given quite a lot of time, quite right. And this was written, the music was started by Tony Iommi. Apparently, and I don't know whether to believe this or not, but it's a great story. Apparently, when he was tinkling the ivories at home, I think, and he'd never played a piano before, started playing it, and this came out quite like that. And a lot of people have covered it, including Eminem. We're going through all that. They call it a proto-power ballad. Now, I can see why they're saying that, but it's a big claim to make, isn't it? But I can see why they would say it's a big shock to fans to have this, I suppose. And we also get Supernaut. And they posit the idea that this was a toy that Mattel in the UK had produced, and they show us that, which is great. And it's described as a metal version of Shaft. I know it's got, but that's not. It's not. That's a big claim to make. Who's the band that won't cop out when there's danger all about? Sabbath. Yeah, Black Sabbath. Shannon! It's a bit odd. But apparently Frank Zappa liked it, and he added little bits of it to certain tracks. There's quite a lot of and Zappa did this, and Zappa did that, and Zappa didn't do this, and he didn't do that. So they go a bit far with the Zappa stuff. I'm not a great fan, so maybe if I was, that would be different. But they never played all of it live. They played it in a melody, in a medley, but they never played it live. Now, the video does posit the idea. Posit, I'm using it again, not posit. That's a different word entirely. Posit the idea that on cornucopia. I mean, Bill Ward had a lot of trouble with that. A lot of trouble with it. As he said, when he was going through a lot of trouble himself, changes himself, and he was in hospital, he listened to that track every day because it reminded me what I used to be able to do. So the video says that they think that Bill Ward and Tony Iommi were the real stars of that track. But Bill thought it took him a while to get it right. And usually he'd been defended in that way. And this time he felt it was different. Remember, an awful lot of Bolivian marching powder is being taken, maybe not by Bill, I can't say that for certain, but an awful lot of that was being taken at the time. And, you know, paranoia is one of the things that is a side effect of that particular unguent. Can I use that word in relation to that powder? Not sure. But anyway, Bill said he thought that the band's relationship with him changed. It seemed to, though. He stayed around. I mean, I know that there are lots of stories of Ozzy, you know, setting fire to him and that kind of thing, and that's difficult to read, isn't it? Well, for me it is, but, you know, he stayed with the band. It's not as if they said, let's get him out. So anyway, St. Vitus Dance. It's great because this is an American organisation, American narrative, and it's great that Bill explains about I was always drumming on things, and my parents said I had St. Vitus Dance. They said I did that. I had that in the 70s as well. I didn't write a song about it, but I made a career around it. So that's great, and I still do, as you can see. So on the tour for the album, they were on. They weren't well. Lots of coke, lots of alcohol. There's also a discussion. They go down a few rabbit holes here, which is, this is an interesting idea. Let's keep on with it. That Changes was done at the Hollywood Bowl, and halfway through, Tony Iommi was playing the piano. It was hideously out of tune, and Geezer Butler said, should we just stop this? And he said, yeah, go on. And they stopped it halfway through, much to the confusion of the crowd. There's no evidence for this, apparently. Someone's just mentioned it. But they then give you their thinking, which is part of the 6-month thing, isn't it? That it might have happened at a sound check. So it could have done. But this video is full of that kind of rabbit hole situation. And I don't mind, because they give you the stuff they need to, and there's time to do this. Now, the album wasn't as popular as Master of Reality at all, but Ozzy reckons it's the most truthful album they've made. I think one of the reasons why he might be saying that is because it's the first album that they produced themselves. Mainly Tony, I think. But as they said, no one knows our music better than us, which is often the cry from bands, isn't it? So we should do that. And they did prepare for a critical flogging. We don't get told on this documentary whether it got that or not. We don't. What they do is they look at the credits, and thanks for the Coca-Cola Company. And Tony Iommi says, well, one of the reasons it's got two meanings. One of the things is that we did an advert for Coca-Cola. Did they? Did they write a jingle? And we don't get it now. I don't think they did they? And they are going through changes on this album because they are questioning their manager, Mr. Meehan, and this album is a marker for them taking control of things. I mean, ironically, not having control at all, because there's too much of this and too much of this, and too much of that. But they were trying to take control of the music, whilst the substance took control of them. Stories of, Tony Iommi on the tour, having stayed up several days straight with the help of certain drugs, and him saying it was nervous exhaustion, that sort of thing. So you do have a dichotomy here, don't you? You do have a dichotomy, which is we are taking control of this because we write our own music, we produce our own music, we have more of a say about our own music, and we're looking at our manager because he seems to be having a bit of a say, and we want to have a look at it. In the meantime, you've got, but I need another line. So, it's not at the time, they're not in the state that they were when they made Sabotage. That's coming up, innit? But this is a great documentary. Available for free on YouTube. The Tapes Archive. It's got some great stuff on there as well. They don't do them very often, but when they do, they're blooming marvellous. Dee 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 ta ta.